Chapter 7. This venerable one likes wontons. The sun blazed down from above. Xishang Peak's veranda stretched out for 100 miles. As a newcomer among the cultivation sect, it was different from the other frame sects of the upper cultivation realm. Take for example Ru Feng sect of Lin Yi. Their main hall was named Six Virtues Hall to encourage the disciples to be wise, faithful, holy, righteous, benevolent, and loyal. The disciples resided in an area called Six Demeanor Gate, reminding the disciples to be filial, cordial, harmonious, martial, responsible, and compassionate toward one another. And the area of study was named Six Arts Platform, meaning the disciples were expected to be masters in ritual, music, archery, writing, calligraphy, and arithmetics. In other words, endless elegance. On the other hand, Xishang Peak came from an impoverished background, and its names were hard to explain, to say the least. Loyalty Hall and Platform of Sin and Virtue were still acceptable. Perhaps it was because Moran's father and uncle weren't exactly scholars and couldn't choke out that many decent names. But towards the end, they started to get nonsensical, assigning Shuya-esque names left and right. Thus, Xishang Peak had many names and plagiarized from the underworld. For example, the self-reflection room was called Yanluo Hall. It's the king of hell. The bridge connecting the recess and study areas was called the Naiho Bridge. Naiho, the bridge between life and death, one must cross it to be reborn. The dining hall was called Mungpo Hall. Mungpo Hall is Hell's soup lady. She distributes soup to people before they're reborn. The soup erases the person's memories from the past. The training field was called Mountain of Daggers and Sea of Flames. The forbidden area behind the mountain was called Ghost Zone, so on and so forth. At least these were relatively acceptable. The more out of the way areas were bluntly named, "This is mountain," "This is water," "This is a hole," as well as the famed and wow cliffs. The quarters of the elders naturally did not escape unscathed, and each had their own nicknames. And naturally, Chu Wanning was no exception. He liked peace and quiet and did not want to live near others. His residence was located at the southern summit of Xishang Peak, hidden in a bamboo grove like an ocean of jade. There was a pond before the main hall, covered in blooming red lotuses throughout the seasons, thanks to a bounty of spiritual energy, resplendent as crimson clouds. The disciples called this elegant and scenic place Red Lotus Hell. Thinking about it, Moran couldn't help but snicker. Chu Wanning wore a frightful and sour place day in and day out. To the disciples, seeing him was like seeing the devil himself. And what should the home of the devil be called if not hell? Shui Meng interrupted his daydream. "The hell are you giggling about? Hurry and finish your breakfast. I have to take you to the platform of sin and virtue after this. Did you forget that Shizun is going to discipline you in public today?" Moran sighed and gingerly touched the lash mark on his face. "Oh, serves you right." "I wonder if Tianwan has been fixed yet. Please don't interrogate me with it again if not. Who knows what other nonsense I might spout." Faced with Moran's genuine worries, Shuimeng's face flushed with anger. He threatened, "If you dare to be improper towards Shizun in public, I'll rip your tongue out." Moran covered his face with one hand and waved the other as he croaked faintly. No need. If Shizun ties me up with that willow vine again, I'll just end myself on the spot to prove my innocence." Early in the morning, Moran was brought into the platform of sin and virtue in accordance with customs. He cast his gaze out. Below, a sea of people stood, dressed in dark blue as far as the eye could see. The disciples of Xishang Peak were all dressed in the sect uniform. Light armor, so blue as to be nearly black. Lion head belt, wrist guard and clothing trimmed in sparkling silver. The sun rose from the east. Below the platform of sin and virtue, a sea of gleaming armor. Moran knelt on the high platform, listening to the Jielu elder read the lengthy indictment. "Mo Wei Yu, disciple of Yuhong elder, disregarded commandments and ignored teachings, disrespected sect rules, and abandoned morality. You have violated the 4th, 9th, and 15th mandates. As punishment, you will receive 80 strikes, copy the sect rules 100 times, and reflect in confinement for 1 month. Mo Wei Yu, have you anything to say in your defense? Moran glanced at the white silhouette in the distance. That elder was the only person in the entirety of Xishang Peak who was not required to wear the standard silver-trimmed blue uniform. Chuan Ning dressed in snow-white satin, with an outer drape of cloud-patterned silver silk, as if swathed in clear frost from the highest of the heavens. But the person himself seemed more frigid than even snow and frost. He sat calmly, too far away from Moran to see his expression. But Moran knew, without needing to see, that this person was probably entirely unperturbed. Inhaling deeply, Moran replied, I have nothing to say in my defense. Next, in accordance with custom, Jielu Elder asked the disciples gathered below, if anyone disagrees with the judgment or has any other appeals, you may speak now. The disciples fidgeted, glancing at one another. No one had thought that Yu Hong Elder Chuan Ning would actually send his own disciple to the platform of sin and virtue to be published in public. This, to put it politely, was strict and impartial, but to put it frankly, was called being a cold-blooded demon. Cold-blooded demon Chuan Ning wore an air of indifference, sitting in his seat with his chin propped up. Suddenly, someone shouted, using an amplification technique. Yu Hong Elder, this disciple would like to plead for leniency on behalf of Moshidi. Is that so? Moran was the Peak Lord's nephew. The disciple clearly thought that even if he blundered, his prospects were still bright and promising, and so he decided to seize the opportunity to win favor with Moran. He started to babble nonsense. Although Moshidi has erred, he is cordial with his fellow disciples and compassionate to the small and weak in his daily conduct. Will Elder please grant leniency in view of his kind nature? He was not the only one hoping to curry favor with Moshidi. More and more people began to speak on Moran's behalf, on grounds fantastic and varied. Even Moran himself was embarrassed listening to them. When had he ever been pure and innocent, broad-minded and open? Was this assembly for punishment or commendation? Yu Hong Elder, Moshidi once helped me defeat demons and slay vicious beasts. I would like to request recognition for Moshidi's merits. Merits undoing demerits. Requesting Elder lessen the punishment. Yu Hong Elder, when I experienced chi deviation, it was Moshidi who helped me dispel my inner demons. I believe Moshidi only erred due to a brief lapse in judgment. Requesting Elder to lighten Shidi's punishment. Yu Hong Elder, Moshidi once bestowed me an elixir to save my mother. He's virtuous and benevolent by nature. Elder, please be lenient. The final person's pretext had been taken by the person before him, and he was left at a loss for words. Chuan Ning's frosty gaze swept toward him, and he rambled out in a panic. Yu Hong Elder, Moshidi once helped me dual cultivate? Oh no! Someone failed to hold in their laughter. That disciple blushed up to his ears and withdrew embarrassment. Yu Hong, calm down, calm down. Jielu Elder, seeing these turns of events, hurriedly tried to soothe him. Chuan Ning spoke coldly. I have never seen a person this shameless. What is his name? Whose disciple? Jielu hesitated slightly, then forced himself to quietly respond. My disciple, Yao Lian. Chuan Ning raised his eyebrows. Your disciple? Save face, pronounced as Yao Lian. This was acutely awkward for Jielu Elder, whose old face was bright red as he tried to change the topic. His singing voice is not bad. Useful to keep him around when receiving offerings. Chuan Ning humphed and turned away, not wanting to waste any more breath with this shameless Jielu Elder. There were thousands of people in Xishang Peak. A couple of sycophants here and there was nothing out of the ordinary. Looking at the persistent conviction of his sect brothers, even Moran himself almost began to believe them. Impressive. Impressive. As it turns out, he wasn't the only one in this sect adept at spewing lies in broad daylight. This place was full of talented people. After countless pleas of, Yu Hong Elder, please be merciful, Chuan Ning finally spoke. Leading on behalf of Mo Wei Yu, he paused before continuing. Very well. Come up. Unsure what to expect, those people went up with fear and trepidation. A golden light flashed in Chuan Ning's hand, and Tianwen appeared as commanded. wrapping the people, more than a dozen of them, into a bundle with a whoosh, binding them firmly in place. Not this again! Moran was about to lose all hope. The mere sight of Tianwen made his legs go soft. Where the hell had Chu Wanning even attained such a deviant weapon from? It was a good thing he'd never taken a wife in the previous lifetime. Pity the woman who'd get stuck with him. If she didn't get whipped to death, she'd probably be interrogated to death. Chu Wanning's gaze was full of scorn. He asked one from the group. Moran helped you defeat demons. The disciple had no chance against Tianwen's torment and howled immediately. No, no! Asking another one. Moran helped you break out of a chi deviation. Ah, never, never! Moran gifted you an elixir. Help! No, I made it up! Chu Wanning loosened the bind, but immediately after, he raised his hand in a ruthless brandish. Sparks flew everywhere as Tianwen soared out to land brutally against the backs of those lying disciples. Shrieks were heard instantly, blood splashing. Chu Wanning frowned, berating. What are you yelling for? Kneel! Discipline, attendant! Present. Deliver the punishment. Understood. In the end, not only did these people not manage to gain any favor, they each earned 10 strikes for violating the mandate against deception, plus a free bonus lash from Liu Heng, elder. Come nightfall, found Moran sprawled out on his bed. Even though medicinal ointment had been applied, his back was still covered in crisscrossing wounds, and it was impossible to even turn over. He let out a few sniffles, eyes watering from the pain. With his cute looks, this kind of whimpering made him seem like a fluffy, abused kitten. Unfortunately, his inner thoughts were nothing like those of a kitten. He gripped the blanket and bit onto the bed sheets, imagining that bastard Chu Wanning in their place. He bit, stomped, kicked, ripped. His only comfort was that Shimei came to visit him with a bowl of handmade wontons. Under Shimei's gentle, compassionate gaze, Moran's tears poured even more fiercely. He didn't care for concepts like men do not cry. He loved to act spoiled in front of the person he liked. Does it hurt a lot? Are you able to sit up? Shimei sat at the edge of his bed, sighing. Shizun, his hand was really too heavy. Look at your wounds. Some of them are even bleeding. Warmth rose in Moran's chest. Listening to these sympathetic words, he looked up with teary eyes and batted his eyelashes. Since Shimei cares for me so much, I don't feel any pain anymore. Oh, look at your condition. How can it not hurt? It's not like you don't know Shizun's temperament. Do you still dare blunder so in the future? Shimei looked at him with equal parts helplessness and sympathy, his expressive eyes gleaming in the candlelight like a warm spring. Moran's heart skipped a beat. He answered obediently. Won't happen again, I swear. Who even takes your swears seriously anymore? Shimei scolded, but he was smiling. The wontons are getting cold. Can you get up? Just stay put if not. I'll feed you. Moran was already halfway up, but at these words he collapsed back down immediately. In both this lifetime and the last, Shimei's wontons were Moran's favorite. With wrappers thin like clouds and fillings delicate as cream, every bite was moist and satisfying, soft and savory, melting in your mouth and leaving behind a delectable aftertaste. Especially the soup simmered to a rich, milky consistency, sprinkled with bits of chopped green onions and tender wisps of yellow eggs, and finally, a spoonful of chili oil pepper, stir-fried in garlic paste, warming you from the inside out when eaten. Shimei fed him attentively, spoonful by spoonful, saying, I didn't add any chili oil today. Your injuries are too severe, and spicy food is not good for recovery. Settle for the broth, okay? Moran stared at him, smiling, unable and unwilling to look away. Everything you make is delicious, spicy or not. Flatterer. Shimei smiled back and picked out the poached egg in the soup. Here's a runny egg as a reward. I know you like those. Moran laughed mischievously, a silly tuft of hair curling up from his head like a flower blooming. Shimei. Yes? Nothing. Just felt like calling your name. The hair tuft swayed back and forth. Shimei. Shimei suppressed a laugh. Just calling again? Just calling your name makes me happy. May hesitated for a moment, then gently felt his forehead. Silly child, do you have a fever? Moran chuckled and rolled over halfway to peek at him sideways, eyes brightly shining like they were full of stars. I wish I could eat Chimay's wontons every day. He meant every word. After Chimay's death, Moran had always longed to taste his homemade wontons again, but that flavor was gone forever. At that time, Cuchallain had not completely broken off all relations with him. Maybe due to a guilty conscience, seeing the way Moran stayed kneeling in front of Chimay's coffin. In a stupor, Cuchallain had quietly gone to the kitchen, kneaded dough and chopped fillings, and carefully folded a few wontons. But Moran had seen before he could finish. Moran, who had just lost his true love, couldn't tolerate this at all. It had seemed to him as if Cuchallain was mocking him, a clumsy attempt at copying, a deliberate stab. Chimay was dead. Cuchallain could have saved him, but had refused to help and afterwards dared to try to make Moran wontons in place of Chimay. Had he thought that would make Moran happy? Moran had rushed into the kitchen and knocked everything over. Plump white wontons had rolled all over the floor. He'd roared at Cuchallain. Who the fuck do you think you are? Do you have any right to use the things he used? To make the food he did? Chimay is dead. Are you happy now? Or do you have to hound all your disciples to death or madness before you're satisfied? Cuchallain! There's no one left in this world who can make those wontons ever again. No matter how much you imitate him, you'll never even come close. Eating this bowl of wontons now, he was overjoyed and also deeply moved. He kept smiling as he ate, but his eyes grew slightly moist. Thankfully, the candlelight was dim, and Chimay couldn't see such minute details of his expression clearly. Moran said, Chimay? Thank you. Chimay paused for a second, then smiled gently. Isn't it just a bowl of wontons? There's no need to be so formal. If you like it, I'll make it for you more often. Moran wanted to say that thanks is not just for the wontons. Thank you also in both this lifetime and the last, for being the only person to never look down on me, who didn't mind my origins, who didn't care about the 14 years I'd spent struggling to survive by any means, fair or foul. Thank you also, because if not for the fact that I remembered you back then when I was first reborn, I probably would have killed Rongjur, repeated a grave mistake, and walked the same bitter path as before. Thankfully, I was reborn before your death. I will definitely protect you this time. If anything were to happen to you, even if that cold-blooded demon Cuchallain won't save you, I will. But there was no way he could say any of this. In the end, Moran finished the soup without saying anything, leaving not even a scrap of chopped scally. He licked his lips as if still wanting more, dimples deep and charming, looking cute as a fuzzy kitten. Can I have more tomorrow? Chimay didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Don't you want to try something else? Won't you get tired of it? I'll never get tired of your wontons as long as you don't get tired of me. Chimay laughed, shaking his head. I'm not sure how much flour is left. If there isn't enough flour for wontons, how about egg and sweet soup instead? I remember you liked that one too. Okie dokie. As long as you make it, anything is fine. Moran was elated, so happy he could roll around hugging the quilt. How kind Chimay is, Cuchallain. Go ahead and whip me. There's a beauty to take care of me if I'm laid out on the bed. Just thinking about that Shizun of his lit a flame of anger in the midst of his gentle sentiments. Moran dug resentfully into a crack between his bed and the headboard once again, cursing internally. What Yuhang of the night sky? What Beidor mortal? What bullshit? Cuchallain, this lifetime? Just you wait and see. Author's note, Chimay making wontons. Eat, eat, eat! Wise and kind in a wife kind of way. Ah. Shizuan making wontons. Toss, toss, toss. Ink feed fish from Xishang Peak wasted food and disrespected farmers' hard work. Is this the disgrace of human nature or moral bankruptcy? Tune in for today's constitutional discussions. Reality. Shizuan's cooking tastes really bad. His disciples have lost faith in the various Shizuan brand culinary products.